Oh my God, the Democrat Party cannot stop eating itself alive. So, an unhinged liberal Karen podcaster loses her mind and has a meltdown, attacking the establishment Democrats who refuse to endorse Zohran Mamdani and begging them to take the Democrat Party even further left and openly embrace socialism as their platform, because she sees it as the obvious path to success for Democrats. It just highlights the disarray the Democrat Party has been in since they lost the election in November, and the embarrassing identity crisis they're having where they don't know which direction to take the party, what to stand for. Coincidentally, in her deranged breakdown, she impressively highlights everything that's wrong with the Democrat Party and why they're so unpopular. From their preachy elitism to their obsession with racist identity politics, and their desperate embrace of socialism, an ideology that rewards the lazy and punishes the hardworking. Their entire platform for so long has been anti-Donald Trump, that the only members in their party who can seemingly get any kind of buzz or energy are the far-left socialists like Bernie, AOC, Zohran Mamdani, which is emboldening their radical base, who are putting pressure on the leadership to further isolate themselves from moderates. You guys are gonna love this lady's meltdown. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but first let me show you the clip that got her so enraged. This is Hakeem Jeffries explaining why he has not endorsed Zohran Mamdani.
Mamdani has made comments that some have said veer towards anti-Semitism. His initial statement after October 7th, he criticized the Israeli government but didn't criticize Hamas. He defended the use of the word globalize, or the phrase globalize intifada. And he even said that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu should be arrested, or he would, if he were mayor, he would arrest Netanyahu if he visited New York City. Do these things concern you?
Globalizing the intifada, by way of example, is not an acceptable phrase, and he's going to have to clarify his position on that as he moves forward. With respect to the Jewish communities that I represent, I think our nominee is going to have to convince folks that he is prepared to aggressively address the rise in anti-Semitism in the city of New York, which has been an unacceptable development.
Now, our boy Hakeem Jeffries, Walmart Obama, has an impressive way of saying a lot of things without saying anything at all. But let me give you the real reason why the Democrat establishment will not embrace Zohran. It's simple. Despite their attempt to be the party for the working class, for the disadvantaged, for the oppressed, for the marginalized, the Democrat Party is beholden to the wealthy elite far more than the Republican Party. I mean, just look at Kamala Harris. She was anointed as the Democrat candidate, and almost instantly, $1.5 billion flowed into the campaign coffers. They like to talk about Elon Musk supporting Donald Trump, but that was just one example of one very public and outspoken billionaire. Kamala Harris raised 3 times as much money as Donald Trump. And do you expect us to believe that the most unpopular vice president in history got $1.5 billion from grassroots $20 donations? Of course not. She was the most institutional establishment candidate we have ever possibly seen besides Hillary Clinton. And it's also not theory, it's just statistical fact. Donald Trump absolutely dominated with people who earn under $100,000 a year. And because Democrats are at the behest of their wealthy corporate donors, they have no interest in raising taxes on the wealthy to pay for these socialist utopia ideas that they can put forth. And because they know they would never do that, it isn't advantageous for them to campaign on promising all of these free handouts, knowing that they'll never actually get the money to pay for them. But now let's watch this liberal Karen crash out on Hakeem Jeffries over his criticisms of Zohran.
Okay. First of all, he has addressed the rise of anti-Semitism, and it's not performative. It's very, very real. And he understands that it's real, and he has the endorsement of other Jewish politicians that aren't propagandized by a corrupt Israeli government, Hakeem. But secondly, this was your moment, Hakeem, to also stand up against Islamophobia, because here's the thing about human rights, you guys. You don't get to cherry pick. If you're against anti-Semitism, then you have to be against Islamophobia. homophobia, racism, and down the line, also class warfare. This bigotry towards poor people is just abhorrent, which disproportionately hurts people with the color of Hakeem Jeffries' skin. And so this kind of cherry picking because of who donates to Hakeem Jeffries, AIPAC donates to Hakeem Jeffries. How on earth right now is the government of Israel helping calm and quell anti-Semitism? How? How are they doing it? They're not. They lie and they propagandize and they say, we get to do all this stuff with impunity. And that if you criticize us or you do anything wrong towards us or you speak out against us, then we're going to call you an anti-Semite.
Wait, isn't the last thing she said quite literally the Democrat Party playbook? They get to do whatever they want without impunity, and the moment you criticize Democrats, they call you a racist. They call you a fascist. They call you a misogynist. They say you're the next closest thing to Adolf Hitler. The Democrats are the ones who popularized that strategy. Let's not engage in debate with anybody. Let's avoid having to explain ourselves entirely and just suppress and silence people through insulting them. And then she has the nerve to claim Democrats are so altruistic and consistent in their moral stances. Oh, if you're going to condemn anti-Semitism, well, you also have to condemn Islamophobia because every single plight of every single person is connected through intersectionality. It's that delusional thought process that gives you the Queers for Palestine movement, where progressive liberals are supporting Islamic terrorists who do not share any of the same values as them. In fact, if those same Queers for Palestine were actually in Gaza, Hamas would execute them en masse. But for liberals, there doesn't need to be any consistency in your logic. They're satisfied with the intellectually lazy argument that all people share the same plights through one unified fight. But I've seen liberals switch from Ukraine flags to Palestine flags to Mexican flags to supporting Iran because they really don't stand for anything. They get all their self-worth through virtue signaling and pretending to care about whatever the establishment tells them is important that week. I've never heard them condemn the Chinese concentration camps that are holding Uyghurs. I've never heard them condemn the modern slave trade that is still occurring in Africa. And I certainly never heard them condemn Joe Biden's open border policies, which led to over 500,000 children disappearing and being sold into sex slavery. And then she connects it all with her Marxist class warfare comment. Oh, income inequality disproportionately affects the people who look like Hakeem Jeffries. Once again, reinforcing the Democrats' racist worldview that everybody who has the same skin color is exactly the same. And I've got to point this out. I cannot stand when people say things like disproportionately affects this group, because the particular use of that language implies that there is some systemic headwind that group is facing. They see a disparity and conclude that it's the result of discrimination. Disproportionately affects means that there's some sort of systemic phenomenon that is outside of the control of the individual that they are merely subject to the whims of. And when you intentionally use that kind of language to try to absolve individuals of any responsibility, the proposed solution to remedy this problem is the complete deconstruction of a system that if you step outside of your delusional liberal bubble, you would find is free, fair, and equal and actually works very well. Now, she continues on her epic tirade, continues to embarrass herself, and of course, because she's Trump deranged, has to throw in a random jab to how stupid MAGA people are.
The people who preach against anti-Semitism should be joining Zohran Mamdani and standing up against the Islamophobic attacks on him. He has not said anything disparaging about Jewish people. He stands with them in solidarity. And this type of crap is so disgusting to me. And it is a cancer within the Democratic Party. And I'm just going to tell you guys something. We lost these last two elections to an idiot because of these centrist policies, and you're being beholden to special interests. And by God, it's not going to happen again. You can either be a part of the problem or a part of the solution. But if you want to try to box us in when we can clearly see with our eyes and clearly hear with our ears exactly what's happening with Israel and Gaza and try to propagandize another way, we're not dumb like MAGA. We're not fucking stupid. Your base is smarter, and y'all are going to have to adapt or get the fuck out.
So in her sophisticated opinion, with all of her infinite wisdom, she claims liberals can see clearly what's happening with Israel and Gaza. They aren't stupid like us MAGA people. But if they're so keen and aware, how come they were the ones for 4 years claiming that Joe Biden was perfectly fine, willfully denying anything was wrong with Joe Biden, even though it was as clear as day? They pick and choose when they want to acknowledge reality. According to her, Democrats are brilliant. They're so smart, they can't be tricked. But also, none of them, no matter how many degrees they have, no matter how much of an intellectual they proclaim themselves to be, they still can't tell you what a woman is. And then this crazy lady claims that if you believe in fighting against anti-Semitism, Zohran Mamdani is the candidate you should be backing. The same guy who refused to condemn the saying by his supporters globalize the Intifada, which is a call to kill all Jews and the destruction of the state of Israel. They have such a two-tier set of standards. It is so hypocritical and cowardly. With Donald Trump, it was, well, white supremacists support your movement, even though you haven't been explicitly white supremacist yourself, so will you condemn white supremacy? And Trump had no problem doing it. But with Zohran Mamdani, they believe he doesn't have to condemn anything. He didn't say anything. Those words never came out of his mouth, even though that is one of the core beliefs of his supporters, because he intentionally attracted the radical terrorist left. But they don't hold him to the same level of accountability as Donald Trump. They're just so down bad and desperate for a pulse that they'll take anything they can get, even if it comes in the form of a radical left socialist terrorist sympathizer from Uganda. Now, here's the last part of her unhinged meltdown, where she seemingly goes through a midlife crisis moment, desperately trying to be accepted by the youth and show that she's hip with the kids. As she says, what the Democrat Party needs is more youth and more socialism.
We should go younger. I think we should go further to the left. I think we should campaign for everybody. And Zohran Mamdani leaves no one behind. But AIPAC doesn't like him because he's Muslim, because that's a brand damaging problem for them. If there's a Muslim that comes out and speaks for everybody, they're going to have a hard time convincing rube Americans that all Muslims are bad and we have to send all our taxpayer money to Israel, who, by the way, gets free health care subsidized by us, gets a lot of bombs subsidized by us. And if your kids in Israel want to go to a higher education, guess what? They don't have to go in debt because it's subsidized by us, by these politicians.
Now, her analysis on why people are critical of Zohran is so surface level, she doesn't even attempt to get to the actual answer. The reason people are so upset with a wave of Islamic extremism apparently being adopted and embraced by the Democrat Party is because what Islam believes is incompatible with Western values. It is antithetical to American philosophy. And if we can acknowledge that religious people put God above everything else, then the rational conclusion is that assimilating people into American society, whose highest belief system, their religion, is at complete odds with Western values, is bad for our country. And we shouldn't let people who have these kind of guiding principles dictate our government policy. In America, we believe women have agency. Women have the right to express themselves. Islam believes women are property, that they have an obligation to God to restrict themselves. How do you square those two things? And that's just one example. I get her frustration with AIPAC in Israel. I think everybody's having a little bit of Israel fatigue at the moment. But to embrace an ideology that calls for the destruction of Israel and the expulsion of its entire population from its land is anti-Semitic and genocidal. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a terrorist. Now, her doubling down that the Democrat Party needs to get younger, it needs to get more radically socialist, will inherently keep attracting the most bitter and angry and unproductive members of society. Socialism is an ideology for people who are too lazy and lack the intellectual capacity to be responsible and self-sufficient. They would rather trade their independence and their liberty for a life free of thinking, of choice, of having to make decisions, of having to take care of yourself, and instead opt for something where the government gives everything to you. The government tells you what to do, where instead of taking control of your own destiny, you go to the government every month with your handout for your food rations. It's an embarrassingly childish mindset, and it's predicated on stealing from others who are productive and hardworking because you're jealous that they have more than you. And that's why the Democrat establishment refuses to embrace replace Zohran because the people they're controlled by don't want their taxes raised to pay for a whole bunch of lazy blue-haired socialists. The last thing I'm going to show you is a story broke that reveals just how horrible Kamala Harris was as a candidate, how unlikable and impersonable she was. And during the campaign, she went on a podcast, and the host of that podcast is now revealing Kamala Harris's answers were so bad and so weird, him and the Harris team decided that it should never see the light of day. Take a look.
Emailed me.
They emailed, like an email from the
DNC.
Okay.
And they said, hey, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are really interested in being on your show. I said, that sounds cool.
Okay.
I'll at least get to tell my daughter that I met the potential president of the United States.
Yeah.
And so I said yes, based on the fact that it would be a good story. And also they both had good takes.
What happened with Kamala?
Her take was really confusing and weird and not good. And so mutually agreed that we shouldn't publish it.
I see.
And I got lucky because I didn't want to be blamed for her losing.
Her take was that bad?
It was really, really bad, and it was like didn't make any sense. I can tell you, bacon as a spice. Bacon as a spice.
Bacon as a spice.
That is why Kamala Harris was the biggest manufactured disaster we've probably ever seen in politics. She was the most unpopular vice president ever, and then ran a campaign as if she was a lady of the people, as if she had this natural Barack Obama level charisma. The host of the podcast just proved what we already knew. She's not a real person. Everything about her is weird and forced and inauthentic. And all of that came off during the campaign. And it more so goes to show why she didn't do Joe Rogan, because he wouldn't have agreed to not air the podcast just because she was constantly word salading, saying things that didn't make sense and embarrassing herself. But the host who we just saw, his style of show is meant to be much more casual. It's meant to show the human and personal side of celebrities and politicians. And Kamala was so bad at that, she couldn't even pretend to be normal well, that they decided to scrap it and not put it out because he didn't want to be responsible for her losing the election. That's how bad it was. I just wanted to show you that to give you guys a reminder of just how close we came to this woman being in charge of the United States of America. And that is something we can all be happy and thankful about. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on the notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.